numerical most of the time, but there is no as such mandatory rule. You can have numeric values as well, but the biggest trick to understand or to conclude it is nominal or not is you are going to have no precedence or no preference in order. Okay, these values are not associated with any weightage or any preference. For example, gender. Okay, gender is categorical. We have got limited finite values, mostly 2, mostly 3 or 4 at max, right? So only distinct and possible values are 2, 3 or 4. But can we arrange these values in particular order of preference or precedence? Right? We are not talking about like a social cue, so like women first or ladies first, right? No. So like male, female, others, okay, they are equal, right? So male cannot come first, female cannot come first. These values are equivalent. I cannot arrange them in order, and by order I don't mean the alphabetical order. Okay, we cannot arrange them in order of precedence, preference or weightage at all. This type of random variables are known as nominal random variables. Properties are no order, no comparison, no calculation, because they are not numeric value. So of course we cannot perform any sort of calculation on them, and no interval. Can anyone tell me what is interval? What do we mean by interval here? Anyone from like other side as well? Feel free to answer the questions whenever you want. What is interval property here, and why we are saying nominal random variables are not going to follow the interval property?
Interval is the gap between two random variables.
Exactly. So even if there is going to be anyway some sort of order, okay, and some sort of precedence, I want to measure that gap. I want to measure like by what amount one value is higher than other, by what amount one value is lower than other. But that is not possible, that is not applicable in case of nominal at all. So we'll come to that particular point in next case, next type of variable, which is ordinal. So now it will make more sense. Okay, so the another category of or another classification of discrete random variable is ordinal. Now all the properties of discrete random variable is applicable here as well, so I'm not going to repeat them again, but let us try to understand the specific properties of ordinal random variable. Okay, so ordinal random variable has got what? One extra property, which is order. Okay, now I will have the discrete values, okay, but I can arrange those discrete values in some order. That's why they are known as ordinal random variable. Now the very simple example and very famous example is size. Like whenever we buy some apparel, some t-shirt, shirt, right? So generally they are going to come with some size, right? Small, medium, large, extra small, right? These are finite values. These are non-numeric values. These are not continuous values, but still we can arrange them in order, right? So they have got order. Now a question maybe arises here, why nominal or ordinal, these variables are important in machine learning and data science. Okay, why they are important? Firstly, whenever we are going to work in machine learning, we are going to work or we are going to implement maybe algorithms, right? Algorithms understand the numerical data or maybe continuous data very well, right? But they don't understand the non-numeric data. Okay, because most of the time, like if we are going to specifically work on some parametric algorithms, okay, we are going to work on mathematical equations. In a mathematical equations like beta 0 plus beta 1 x1 beta 2 x2, in place of x I cannot write male or female, like 2.3 multiplied by male and 6.4 multiplied by India, right? So I will have to somehow translate these values into numeric values. So I need to know it in advance what type of variable I have. If my variable is nominal random variable, I have no precedence, so I can simply convert those variable in the form of one hot encoding. We call it one hot encoding. Okay, so some people are aware of it. That is actually used for that purpose, because we cannot use label encoding for nominal random variable. On the other side, if you are dealing with ordinal random variable, it has got precedence, it has got preference, it has got order among the values. So if you are using label encoder and you are maybe mapping the value, like small is 0 and medium is 1 and large is 2, that will make sense. But if you will say, like, you know, male is 0, female is 1, other is 2, it is not acceptable. Why? Any explanation, any thought? Why cannot I map like male, female, other as 0, 1, 2?
Now, if we can leave.
Excuse me, I think someone is not on mute. Can you please put yourself on mute if you are not talking? Thank you. So yeah, I'm going to repeat my question again. My question was why we cannot map, you know, encode like a gender column using label encoder, like male, female, and other 0, 1, 2. Yeah, and by doing that, what I'm doing, I am unnecessarily enforcing the order. Okay, I'm unnecessarily enforcing the order. So in my like parametric equation, when male is coming, the value is 0, but when the female is coming, the value is 1. When other is coming, the value is 2. So accordingly, it has got unnecessary order. That should not be the ideal case. So what I will do, I will use one hot encoding, and maybe I will use binning approach. I can use chi-square approach. I can use information approach. So like in future, you will learn about many other encoding techniques. These are the basics, 2 simple approaches, label encoder and one hot encoder. So that is why, you know, understanding this further bifurcation of random variable is important in machine learning. Next comes the, okay, I think I covered, yeah. Okay, there is one limitation of ordinal random variable, and that limitation is no interval. Now, what is this limitation, no interval? Okay, if I know small is less than medium, medium is less than large, but I cannot define by what amount small is less than medium and by what amount medium is less than large. Okay, definitely there will be some calculation when someone is, you know, manufacturing t-shirts or shirt, right? They know exact calculation, but it is not following the regular interval. Okay, I cannot say that like medium small is like 10 centimeter less than medium, medium is 10 centimeter less than large. Is not that straight, as simple as that. These values are not following the uniform scale. That is why interval is missing here. But when we talk about next type of random variable, interval, which is considered as a further classification of continuous random variable. Okay, so these two are further classification. Nominal and ordinal are classifications of discrete random variable, and interval on the other side, and ratio the next. These are the classification of continuous random variable. Now, interval random variable, you know, it's continuous random variable, so it has got like continuous values. Most of the time you are going to deal with the decimal. Okay, but again, keeping in that mind, I have infinite range. Okay, so if I'm going to have the continuous values, I have got numerical values in short. And if I have numerical values, definitely I have order, I can perform comparison, I can perform all sort of statistical and mathematical calculation like mean, mode, median, all the summary calculation, aggregation calculations are possible. Other than that, I have got regular interval. Okay, what is regular interval? Regular interval means I can calculate the amount, the gap by which one, you know, value is more than other, okay, or less than other. So, you know, one more thing, one more disclaimer. Interval is one of the type of continuous random variable which has got least number of practical applications or real-time applications. So you might not be able to find a lot of examples, okay, but one very common example, and it is applicable, you know, across the industries as well, is temperature. Because temperature many a times in the industries, you know, temperature is something which is measured. Now, temperature is something that is measured using multiple scales, right? We use temperature, we measure the temperature using Celsius scale as well, Kelvin scale, Fahrenheit scale. We have different scales to measure the temperature. Now, suppose I'm measuring the temperature using Celsius scale. I will say one reading is 10 degrees Celsius, another reading is 11 degrees Celsius, another reading is 12 degrees Celsius. Now, if we try to compare this example with size example, medium, size, small, medium, and large, here I can define the gap, right? Like 10 degrees Celsius is like exactly 1 degree more than 10, and 12 is exactly 1 degree more than 11, right? I have uniform gap, I have like uniform scale followed by temperature in any scale, using Celsius, using Fahrenheit, using Kelvin, whatever it is, right? Okay. Now it has got one very important limitation, and that limitation is absolute zero. Here absolute zero is missing. Now what is absolute zero? Firstly, let us try to understand that. Okay, so absolute zero is something when we can say that with 100% confidence, like whenever my scale is showing something or showing some reading like zero, it means absolute zero. Okay, that thing doesn't exist in simplest word. Okay, if whenever I'm saying my value, my reading is zero, that means that thing doesn't exist. Okay, so when we are going to measure the temperature using the Celsius scale, I will say my temperature is 0 degrees Celsius. But at the same time, if I will convert the same temperature into some other unit, like I will convert it into Fahrenheit, so it will become how much? 32 Fahrenheit. So in one scale, something is zero. Using the another scale, it is non-zero. So here zero is not absolute zero. And can anyone think about it, like why we have this problem? Why like here zero is missing? Why we cannot say like zero is absolute zero here in case of temperature? Cannot you solve this problem? Yeah.
Measurement of temperature is basically how much that mercury is expanding or whatever you think. And these are some scale, centigrade, Kelvin, or your Fahrenheit.
Right.
So you cannot pinpoint that this is my zero. Zero is again relative to your measurement unit.
Yeah. Yes, quite close. So basically, in simple word, what we can say that we don't know the minimum possible value of temperature. Can we imagine that? How minimum temperature can be? No one can imagine that, right? Maybe
minus 273 degrees centigrade.
to our capabilities, okay, to measure that. But maybe if you go to beyond this universe, you can have maybe something else. Okay, so I'm not like going to argue in that direction. But yeah, we cannot like measure minimum possible temperature, and that is the reason the origin is missing. Okay, and when origin is missing, so what we are human, we are smart, so what we have done, we have come up with our own definition of origin. Okay, so what we have done, okay, the temperature at which water will start freezing, we call it 0 degrees Celsius. The temperature at which the water will start boiling, we call it 100 degrees Celsius, and we have come up with our own definitions of minimum value, maximum value. These are scale dependent, these are not universal. Okay, due to that reason, if I don't know my origin, okay, then this problem is going to happen. Now, what is the drawback? Can anyone tell me what is the drawback of this? Like, okay, I don't have like origin, I don't have a minimum possible value or absolute zero. How is it going to impact my life? Like analytics, in terms of analytics, what is going to be the disadvantage?
I cannot minimum value. So that could be a mathematical problem if you don't know the minimum and maximum.
There will be no UC or LC. Yeah, same thing what he said.
Sorry, say it again. The second point, someone is adding something. UCL.
There will not be LC or UC. Yeah, like similar to what he said.
Yeah. Yes. So you both are correct. Okay. And basically, in more simple words, I cannot calculate ratio. I cannot, perform the relative calculation. Okay. If I have one reading like maybe 16 degrees Celsius. Okay. And 16 degrees Celsius, if I'm going to convert into Fahrenheit, it will like 60 Fahrenheit approximately, I think. Okay. And when I have 32 Celsius, it is going to be like 89 Fahrenheit. Okay. So using one scale, I will say these two readings have got the ratio of 100%, like 200%, right? 2x. 16 is to 32 is got 1:2 ratio, but 60 is to 90 or 89 has got like 1:1.5x ratio, right? So ratio is also scale dependent, and in most of the time in the world of analytics, is ratio, percentage, these are very important calculations, right? These are very important. Most of the times, we talk about like a stock market, got down by 1.53%. Our sales got up by 1.63% on quarter-on-quarter basis, month-on-month basis, right? So in analytics, most of the time, We are going to talk about ratio and percentage, and that is thing which is not applicable. Okay, so that is the limitation. And so in order to solve this limitation, we have got the fourth variety of random variable, which is ratio. And ratio is like the most normal one, so nothing to be worried about the ratio. Ratio is something that we all are aware of. Okay, so anything that comes to your mind whenever I say continuous random variable or continuous numeric values, so anything that comes to your mind, I'm pretty sure you will not be, you are not going to be wrong over here. Okay, so like if you are thinking very simple things, distance. Okay, so distance is measured maybe using miles, using kilometers, using meters, centimeters. If I'm saying the distance between 2 points A and B is 0 centimeter, it's going to be 0 irrespective of my scale. If I'm going to measure it using miles, it will remain 0 miles only. If I'm going to measure it using kilometer, it's going to be 0 kilometer only. If I'm going to talk, if I'm talking about maybe revenue or profit, and if I'm saying my profit was 0 USD last quarter, so when I'm going to convert my profit into INR, will it become like 10,000 INR? No, just because you're like a USD is strong currency. Okay, so no, like 0 is 0. 0 USD means 0 INR, irrespective of the currency, that is going to be 0 only. So like here 0 is absolute 0. We don't have to worry about it. So all the like numeric continuous values you can think of, or examples of numeric continuous values you are aware of, they all are going to be ratio in nature, and ratio are the one that in data science or machine learning most of the time you are going to deal with. Okay, okay. So any questions so far from this particular topic? Okay, I think we are good. If you have anything, you can stop me in between. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Yeah, okay. So regular interval is what? Whenever you are able to, calculate the difference or gap at regular intervals. Okay, like your consecutive values are showing the same, pattern. For example, if I will say my readings are like 10, 11, and 12. Okay, as example I use. Okay, so 10 degrees Celsius, 11 degrees Celsius, and 12 degrees Celsius. So imagine the amount by which 11 degrees Celsius temperature is going to be hotter than 10 degrees Celsius. That is going to be the same amount by which 12 degrees Celsius is going to be hotter than 11 degrees Celsius. So it is like regular interval. They are following the consecutive values are present at regular interval. Like if you are like 5 people, if I am going to ask you, please arrange in queue, it doesn't mean I'm asking you to follow the regular interval. You can stand anywhere. Like she and he can maybe maintain the distance of maybe 1 meter, but they can maintain the distance of 5 meter. That will be irregular interval. Right? Okay. So next thing we are going to talk about the central tendency. Very simple thing. I'm going to keep it short. Like everyone is aware of central tendency. Generally, the central tendencies are what? Central tendencies are the statistical measures using which we try to define the representative of the population or data set. Okay, so like whenever someone is asking about the whole population, definitely we cannot point out like this reading, that reading, like all the 100 reading or 1000 reading. So generally we use central tendency and we say that okay, average value is this much, median value is this much, or maybe mod value is this much. The only important rule to understand here is like whenever in your population or data set you have outliers. Okay, outliers means like in this room, like suppose we have 20 people. Okay, and out of these 20 people, for 10 people, okay, don't take it seriously. Okay, this is just example I'm using. So for 10 people, the age is between from 25 to 27. Okay, and for remaining 10 pupils, not the remaining, maybe let me change my example. Okay, so for 18 out of 20 people, the age is between 25 to 27. There are 2 people. Okay, one the age is maybe 5 years, or another one the age is like 85 years. Okay, what are they? They are outliers because they are going to change the distribution or impact the distribution of my data. Okay, so if I'm going to maybe measure the central tendency this time, my central tendency is going to be very much impacted by this outlier. If I have, you know, couple of data points like this who have got like a very big value like 85, 90 years, my average is going to be shifted towards them, and unnecessary like my rest of the population is there in 25 and 27 years of interval, without even after that my central tendency is going to come like maybe 32 years or 33 years, right? Which is like way beyond my, you know, true population. Okay.
Hemant, you should use a standard deviation for that purpose.
We use, but central, like if you are going to use mean, that is not going to give you correct result. So what I was trying to explain here is the disadvantage of mean in case of outliers.
Yeah, that's why standard deviation.
Sorry, I don't get it. Can you please explain it?
Standard deviation.
Yeah, but how a standard deviation is going to be helpful here?
That's the formula, sigma fd square by sigma fd whole square minus 1, something like that.
Yeah.
So that will give you the more accurate. It will.
Let me try to explain this problem to you again. Okay. So for example, you have 5 values. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 100. Okay. And I'm going to ask you the central tendency. What would be your answer?
So it's depend on what kind of measurement you are taking. If I take a simple average, then middle point is different. If I take a standard deviation, then it will be a different one.
Okay, so central deviation is first of all not the measurement of central tendency. Sorry, standard deviation. Standard deviation is the measurement of dispersion. That is something we are going to discuss next. Okay, so actually what I'm trying to explain here is your mean, or as you mentioned, like simple average. Simple average is always going to do what? As you can see in the formula, it is going to take all the values, right? It is going to do the sum and divided by n, right? So it is going to be impacted by the outlier. So the example that I gave, like 100 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3, in that case, you know, my average is going to be maybe come around 25, 26 or something. But my most of the population, like 1, 2, 3, they are way different than 25 or 26. That is the problem with mean. Now, what is the standard deviation? Standard deviation, you know, measures how much variance or how much dispersion I have present in my data. That will not give you the central tendency. It will give you the amount by which your data points differ from each other. So is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So mean is going to be impacted by that, outliers things, okay? But median is not going to be impacted by those outliers, because median is what? Median is nothing but the middle number. So even if I use the same example, like 1, 2, 3, and 100, okay? Let us make it like 1, 2, 3, 5, and 100, something like that. If I'm going to calculate the middle number, my middle number is going to be what? 3. Okay? It is still present and well situated in the middle of my majority of the population, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 5, and it has completely ignored that outlier. So whenever you are performing exploratory data analysis, or whenever you are starting with, you know, analyzing your variables to see its distribution, we generally talk about outlier detection, outlier analysis. So that is why we, you know, follow this, and we try to keep them minimum. We discard them because they are not following the pattern followed by the rest of our population, and that is why they are going to unnecessarily, you know, change the trend, change the central tendency, standard deviation, this type of statistical property of our data. So in order to avoid that situation, we avoid the outliers. Okay, so median is not impacted by outliers. Even if you have outlier present in your data, median is going to take care of it. Last one is the mode. So mode is very simple. Whatever data point is going to, or whatever the value is going to present in your data set for most of the time, most frequent value, that is mode. And generally, like categorical values, if you are playing with categorical values, for categorical values, I cannot apply simple average or maybe median. So due to that reason, for categorical values, mode is used. Okay, so how do we measure the central tendency for categorical values? Mode. Okay, like maybe I have got you know, like colleges, okay, and generally the educational institutes are given some grade, right? Grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. If I have to know what is the central tendency of the grade of all the engineering colleges present in Mumbai, I will follow those grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3, and I will say for majority of engineering colleges in Mumbai, the grade is grade 2. So what I'm doing here, I'm calculating the mode. Okay, so that's how we define the central tendency in case of categorical variables. Okay, so now like what you are asking about, the standard deviation. So now let's come to that particular part. So before we start with that, okay, let me ask you one question. So suppose I have got two populations or two data sets, and for both of the data set, I have got suppose central tendencies exactly same. For my first population, my mean is say 100, and my second population again, my mean is 100. Okay, then what I do? Then I calculated maybe another central tendency. I said, okay, let's calculate median. And for first data set, median is 110. And second data set, again, median is 110. So for my two given data sets, I have got exactly same central tendencies. My mean are matching exactly. My medians are matching exactly. Can I say that these two data sets are identical? No. Anyone who think like I can say that these data sets are identical? Okay. Okay, so let me know if anyone think that these data sets are identical. So why do you think these data sets are, why not identical? Why they are different? What?
If it is age, then in data set 1, there can be age of 25, and in second data set, there might be possibility that 25 age of 25 occurs multiple times in data set 2. So there might be a possibility that they are dependent on each other and they have same output, as you said, that mean and median.
Yeah. So basically, maybe if I try to explain it in more simple words, then yeah, you were saying.
Scale of distribution would be different.
Yeah, scale of the distribution will be different and dispersion will be different. So for example, in my one data set, if my central tendency is 100, but still my data set can look like this. Okay, my data set can be like 1, 2, 5, 100, then maybe 300, 400, or 200 or something, where when I'm calculating the central tendency or average, the average is somehow coming as 100. Okay. On the other side, my second population can be can look like 98, 99, 100, 101, 102. All the numbers are very close to each other, very close to 100, and that's why their central tendency is coming as 100. So if central tendencies are same, based on that, we cannot say that our data set or population is also exactly same. Okay. So whenever we perform the statistical analysis of any population or data set, like what we do in case of most of the time hypothesis testing, okay, we are mainly going to be concerned about their statistical property, mean, variance, standard deviation. Okay, so at that point in time, we have to perform this parameter estimation, point estimation. All these concepts are around that only. Okay, so what I was saying that there is one more property which is missing here, and that property is the measurement of dispersion, without which we cannot conclude with all accuracy that the data sets or populations are identical or maybe approximate identical or not. Okay, but with the help of measurement of dispersion, we can at least make some approximate guess or estimation about the population distribution and population trend or central tendencies. Okay, so these properties are variance and standard deviation. Using variance and standard deviation, you can actually measure the variance or dispersion present in your data. What do we mean by variance or dispersion? Like on an average, these values are how much close or far from each other. How similar or dissimilar these values are. So what is standard deviation and variance? They are the method to measure the closeness or farness, I should not use dissimilarity or similarity, but maybe the measurement of dispersion, okay, present in your data set. Now what is variance? Variance simply calculates the average squared deviation of the data points from some central tendency like mean. So what I'm going to do, let us see this particular example. Okay, suppose like I have collected some like a traffic inspector maybe at some highway, at some very rare highway where hardly some vehicles pass, so everyone try to overspeed over there. So he has collected like maybe a speed of 10 vehicles passing through that highway. Okay, these speeds are like 13 miles per hour, 12 miles per hour, 17, 18, 18, 21. So like different speeds he has observed. Now he has to make a report. So he can calculate what? He can calculate central tendency firstly to summarize its his data. So he has calculated central tendency, median, mean, average, and average is coming out as 21 miles per hour. So we'll say that on an average, these vehicles are following the speed of 21 miles per hour, but it is not the complete explanation. Okay, because some speeds are way less than 21 and maybe some speeds are way higher than 21. So what he will do, he will also include the measurement of dispersion. So if he is going to calculate variance, what he will do, firstly he will draw a horizontal line that you can see at the level of 21, because 21 is our mean value. So maybe I will draw a horizontal line over here, my reference line, and using this reference line, then I will calculate the deviation or dispersion of the data points as compared to this mean value. Okay, then I will calculate the distance. On an average, these data points are how much far from the mean value. And then I will square these distances, because generally in mathematics, whenever you are measuring errors, residuals, dispersion, you use the squared term to get rid of the sign as well. Okay, so I will calculate the squared deviation and then I will calculate the average, okay, by dividing it by n. So my formula is going to be like this. So summation of xi minus mu square, this is my square deviation, and then divided by n. I will do the sum and then divided by n. It will be my square deviation, average square deviation. That is known as nothing but the variance. So my variance is coming out like 39.8. If for this example only, my variance suppose is coming out as 39.8 miles per hour square. Is it helpful? Is it helpful to make any conclusion? Like my mean is 21 miles per hour. That makes a lot of sense. But when I say like variability present in my data is 39.8 miles per hour square, definitely something sounds little crazy, right? Because my limits are from 13 to 28 and my variance or my dispersion is coming like 39.8, because that is the problem with variance, because variance will change your unit from the original unit to unit square. So your values are coming like 39.8. It is like miles per hour square. To solve this problem, what do? We take the square root of this, and that we call is sigma. So sigma is what? Standard deviation, and standard deviation will give you your unit back. So your unit will come out, your value is coming out 6.3, and then it is going to be miles per hour only, right? So now 6.3 makes a lot of sense, right? On an average, the speed of the vehicles is differing by 6 miles per hour, which makes sense. Like even if I calculate the one standard deviation difference from my mean value from 21, my standard deviation 6.3. So almost all the values are following that range. 21 minus 6.3, 21 plus 6.3, and according to the normal distribution law, approximately 68% values are going to follow that range, one standard deviation above and below mean. Okay, but I'm not sure if it is following the normal distribution or not, so we cannot make this type of conclusion over here. But most of the time, that rule is approximately applicable. Okay, so how these measurement or dispersions are going to be helpful? They makes our picture complete, right, along with central tendency. And that is why in statistics, whenever someone is explaining or defining any population, they will use this type of symbol. They will say my population is following, suppose, normal distribution with mean equal to something and standard deviation equal to something. This is actually considered as the definition of any population, to define a population. So these are two important properties using which, like central tendency and the measurement of dispersion, using which you define any data population. Okay, so I think we are a little bit running out of time. So I think I would by 10-15 minutes if no one has any problem, because we have 2 more slides maybe to cover, and if anyone is having any other meetings or anything, you can feel free to drop. Okay, it will be extended by maybe next 15 minutes so that we can complete the session today itself, like topics of today's session today itself. Okay, so next we are going to talk about the probability distribution of random variable. Now, before we start with the probability distribution, firstly, we will have to understand why probability distribution is important, okay? And what is the objective behind probability distribution? So now with the help of central tendency, we know the representative of our population. With the help of measurement of dispersion, we can measure the variance, the variability present in our data. Now we need to perform our analysis little bit in more detail in order to see the actual trend or actual distribution of the value present in our data. So what is probability distribution? Probability distribution is actually the visual representation of the distribution of the probabilities by the values of your random variable. Now that representation can be present in the form of table, it can be present in the form of plot, or very simply it can be present maybe in the form of formula or something, okay? But distribution, probability distribution gives you what? How your probability is distributed. So like there is one important rule of probability, very basic rule of probability. Your total probability is always going to be 1, right? If your total probability is 1 and in your random variable you have got 100 values, okay? It doesn't mean that if I choose a particular value randomly for my random variable, the probability for that particular value is going to be 1 by 100. It is not going to be the case, right? Because some values can be more probable and some values can be less probable. This is going to happen when you are going to like analyze the uniform probability distribution scenario. Then only all the values have got equal probabilities. Okay, let us understand, okay, that by taking more example. So because our random variable, we have 2 variety or 2 classifications of random variable, discrete random variable and continuous random variable. That is why we have 2 varieties of probability distributions, discrete probability distribution and continuous probability distribution. Now what is discrete probability distribution? Because you have discrete random variable, you have finite and discrete value. So correspondingly, you have finite discrete probabilities, and in the language of statistics, we also call it probability mass function. Like you can see over there, a table is there. This table is simply giving you the probability of getting different output when you throw a rolling die. Okay, so when I throw a rolling die, a fair rolling die is going to give you output anything between 1 to 6, right? Now, if the rolling die is fair, then the probability of getting any output like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're all going to be same. So how do we calculate the probability? Like total number of value in our favor divided by total number of frequency, right? So like 1, if I need to calculate the probability, what is the probability of getting output as 1? So I will say it is like 1 divided by 6, right? So in that way, if we calculate the probability for all the numbers, all the outputs, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we will notice that the probability for all these outputs is same. We call it like uniform probability distribution. Now, if I pick up any output randomly from this particular data space, we call it data space, okay, random variable data space. So from this data space, if I pick up any number randomly, the probability of getting all of these numbers are exactly same, okay? Now we call it probability mass function. Why mass? Because using this table, using this plot, or using this table, whatever it is, okay, in whatever form this particular probability distribution is present, this is directly going to give me the probability value or probability mass. Okay, it is directly give me, like I'm asking what is the probability of 3, so it will give me 1 by 6. It is returning me the probability mass. That's why it is called as probability mass function. Now the other scenario, when your variable is going to be continuous random variable. Yes, tell me. Yes, sure. That happens in case of cumulative probability. So it is not cumulative probability. These are the probabilities for individual output. Okay. So when I'm going to talk about like cumulative probability, I will give you that example as a later. Okay. So then we keep on adding the probabilities. We call it cumulative probability. Okay. So continuous probability distribution, when your target, where your random variable, sorry, is continuous random variable, your probability distribution is known as continuous probability distribution, but at the same time, it is also known as probability density function. Okay. I will try to understand why it is called as probability density function. So now I'm going to firstly take one example over here. Okay. So suppose I'm supposed to, calculate the age of every person in Mumbai. Okay. Including every person in Mumbai, I have to calculate the average age of Mumbai. Okay. What I will do, I will have to note down the age of each and every individual in Mumbai, and that is going to be a very tedious job. So maybe I will have to spend months and year, and by that time, the population of Mumbai will be something else, right? So that is like almost impossible. And also it is almost impossible to note down the age of each and every person, right? So generally in this type of scenario, whenever like age is what? Age is continuous number, okay? Like if I'm saying, the age of some person is 23 years, it is not mandatory today is his birthday, okay? Like he's 23 years, 5 months, 4 days, 5 hours, 6 seconds, right? So age is increasing every moment, right? So age has got like too many values after decimal if we are going to actually measure age with all the precision, okay? So age is a example of continuous random variable. In a real scenario, what we are going to do, whenever we are going to deal with this type of situation, we are supposed to measure continuous variable, and there is going to be a lot of complexity. We try to bin it. We actually convert it into discrete random variable, and a very common approach is you use binning. Okay, so rather than measuring age, I will divide the age in multiple age groups. So I will say, okay, I will note down the age of all the people in this group for whom age is between 0 and 10. Very similarly, all the people between 10 and 20, 20 to 30. This will make my exercise maybe way faster, and I less, with less data, with less complexity. So I will simply note down the frequency, right? How many people are there in this range? How many people are there in this range? Okay. So when we do that, we have got the frequency, or using this frequency, I can also calculate probability, right? How can we calculate probability? By simply like if there are like 11,000 people in the age group 0 to 10, I will divide 11 by total 105. So 11 by 105 will be 0.105 and so on. Okay. So I can calculate the probability for each and every age bin or age bucket as well. Now what is this table? This table is giving me the probability distribution, how my total probability 1 is distributed among these age group values. So what is this table? This table is a probability distribution table for the random variable age group, but age group is still a discrete random variable. Okay, we are not talking about the continuous probability distribution yet. Okay, so this table is an example of probability mass function. I can also convert this table into a bar plot like this, right? Where I can simply show the probability in the form of bars. What is this bar plot? This bar plot is also nothing but probability mass function. Now imagine on the x-axis, I have got age group. If now I have to convert this scenario back to age, from age group to age, from discrete random variable to continuous random variable. If I'm going to do that, then my probability distribution is going to be a continuous curve like this, because I'm going to have maybe infinite values in the range from 0 to 60, which is my range, for example, for age. So between these age, I will come across almost like infinite people, many people, we can say that infinite people with different ages. If I'm going to follow the age up to 3 place of decimal or 4 place of decimal, so up to me, right? So in short, we are going to have too many values on x-axis, and corresponding to too many values, we are going to have same number of values on y-axis, the probabilities, right? So if we are going to like maybe draw tiny vertical bar boxes or bars, it will become a continuous, it will become a solid curve, right? So it will become a continuous probability distribution. Now, why do we call it probability density function? Because from a continuous probability distribution plot, if I am supposed to calculate the probability for any given number, like suppose here, my value is 25. Let us assume, okay, this value on x-axis is 25. And if I am supposed to calculate the corresponding probability, what I will do? I will note down the number somewhere here. But being age is continuous random variable, can I locate 25 here? I cannot locate 25 because age is continuous and all I can locate is range. Okay, I can locate range. So I will say I can locate all the values in the range 25.00001 till 25.99999. So 25 is not a single value for continuous random variable. 25 is a range, whole range. Okay, and in that range I can have further infinite values. So whenever my variable is continuous random variable, I cannot locate one value. I will have to be with range. When I'm going to provide a range over here, this function is going to return me the range, the density of the probability, not a mass of probability. So that is why for continuous random variable, probability distribution function is known as probability density function. And how can we calculate that? When I'm going to provide a range maybe to my probability density function using integration, right? So like I have got a formula, I will put that in integration. I will provide the lower limit, upper limit. I will apply that integration from with respect to age, where the age limit is from 25.001 to 25.999. I will solve that integration given I know the equation of this curve. Okay, if I don't know the equation of this curve, I cannot use integration, right? I will have to maybe approximate that. But that is the idea, okay? Like it is going to give you the density, or why it is known as the probability density function. Okay, so any questions so far from anyone from Hyderabad, Bangalore, Pune? So we can go ahead, right? Okay, so the last topic for today, normal distribution. Okay, normal distribution, very important distribution. It is one of the continuous probability distribution. Firstly, let us try to understand like why normal distribution is that important. So normal distribution is also known as Gaussian distribution. The most important character normal. I don't know the exact reason, but I think like it is pretty much normal. You will find it pretty much everywhere. That's why it is known as normal distribution. There might be some more accurate answer. Okay. So, but why? Because let us try to think some scenario from real world. Okay. For example, whenever we are talking about engineering or maybe quality control, maybe healthcare, precision, compliance, everywhere we are going to have normal distribution. Let's, for example, let us say in my I am the owner of a factory, okay, and my factory produces some nut bolts maybe, okay, and for one particular order I am supposed to manufacture maybe 1 million nuts, 1 million bolts maybe with like 5 millimeter diameter, and their requirement is like 5 millimeter means 5 millimeter. It should be like 5.000 millimeter, right? That is their expectation. They are going to use that maybe for a space shuttle or what, right? So I don't know. I cannot like compromise with the quality and precision, right? So no matter how precision or how precise my manufacturing process is, there is always going to be error, right? And what that error? Maybe after 5 place of decimal or maybe after 10 place of decimal, my different bolts are going to have maybe slightly different diameter. Like my one bolt can be like 5.000001 diameter, and second bolt can 5.000002 diameter. Right? That is possible. So no matter how like strictly you follow the compliance or precision, there is always going to be a little chance of error and fluctuations, and due to that fluctuations, you are going to see what normal distribution. You are supposed to follow some particular mean mu, but because of this deviations, you will get the observation slightly above mean, slightly below mean. If your process is giving you this type of output, that means it is following the normal distribution. Definitely there are some other aspects as well of normal distribution, but in most of the cases you will follow this type of situation. Now suppose if my machine or if my factory is always following a pattern, like it is giving me bolts like 5.00001 or 5.00002 or 5.00003, but it is not giving me like 4.999999. It is not giving me, like it is slightly biased toward more than 5. It is not normal distribution, and there is some problem with my machine. So that is dangerous situation. Okay, if you are supposed to manufacturing something with mean 5, so you should get the results slightly more than 5 and slightly less than 5. Okay, but if you are getting results only like more than 5, that means it might be a wear and tear issue. Okay, like your machinery has got some wear and tear over the period of time. So it is always going to manufacturing something more than what you asked for. Okay, so in normal distribution you should have the readings or values from both sides of the mean. These are some properties. Like in case of normal distribution, your all the three central tendencies are going to be coincide: mean, mode, median. They all three central tendencies are coincide. Due to that reason, the analysis, the observation of a normal distribution is very easy. And these are some straightforward. Yeah, someone is asking something. Someone is saying something. Okay, and these are some important rules according to the distribution of normal distribution. According to the normal distribution, if you are going to cover the range of one standard deviation around the mean, that is going to include approximately 68% of your data point. If you will cover the distance of two standard deviation around the mean, it will give you 95% data points, and three standard deviation around the mean will give you almost 99.7% data points. So that is why generally in statistics or in analytics, if you're if you are following the outlier, if you are doing the outlier analysis, and if you have some observations beyond three standard deviation, we generally consider them as outlier, because only 0.3% data points are going to be there which will be present beyond the range of three standard deviation. Okay. Okay, I know some people are enjoying sleeping, about to sleep. Okay, so last one. Okay, then we can wind up. Standard distribution. Now it's of normal distribution. That is why it is known as standard normal distribution. And standard normal distribution is nothing but a normal distribution with zero mean and one standard deviation. Now, before we talk about all this, maybe we can try to understand it by taking considering one forward to turn on the camera. I was in the board. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure, the board is going to be that much visible at remote locations, but I will try my best to draw something that can be visible to you. Please let me know, guys, if you have, if you are like drawings are not clear to you, and if you want some further explanation. You're able to read this, whatever is written. Okay, so using this example, we can very quickly understand what is the standard normal distribution and how it is important. Okay. So, for example, you know, as we discussed earlier, a normal distribution can have any mean and any standard deviation. Okay, right? So, for example, I can have one normal distribution where my mean is like 5 mm and my standard deviation may be 0.1 mm. Okay. On the other side, I can have another normal distribution, and for that normal distribution, I can have 100 mean and maybe 10 standard deviation. Okay, in some unit. So they have to follow different mean. Like again, we are using that nut bolt example. Okay, if my client is asking me, okay, we have given you the order to deliver the bolts with 5 mm diameter, but we have observed some variation. So we are wondering what is the possibility or probability that your diameter can be less than 4.99998 and more than 5.0001, because this range is something we are not going to tolerate. Okay, this is not acceptable case. They can ask this type of question, and in order to answer this question, what will I have to do? I will have to calculate this probability, cumulative probability for this area and this area. And we know the rule from the probability, the total probability is always going to be 1. So maybe I need to know the formula of this curve. And the formula of this curve? The formula of this curve is something like 1 divided by square root of 2 pi sigma square e to the power x minus mu square divided by 2 sigma square. So this is the equation of normal distribution curve. If I am supposed to calculate maybe this area and this area, I will follow some integration like from minus infinite range till this value 4.998 and dx with respect to like this distance, and very similarly I will do this for this range as well, right? And this is going to give me this probability and this probability. Like how complex, like this equation is that much complex when I'm going to apply the integration. So right, so this is going to screw your life. So what we are going to do to make it easy, we will follow standard normal distribution. And what is the benefit of standard normal distribution? Standard normal distribution, what statisticians have done, like this was imagine this problem maybe 20 years back, when maybe 50 years back, 100 years back, right? When they don't used to have any calculator, right? And they have to deal with this type of things. Also, what would they do, right? So what they have done, they have come up with the concept of standard normal distribution, and they say a normal distribution with 0 mean and 1 standard deviation is a standard normal distribution. Now, if I have to calculate this area, from this reserve is also going to be 1, and is also going to be 1. So what they have done, they have prepared a Z table, a pre-populated table that has got readings for all the values of a standard normal distribution. For a standard normal distribution, you are going to have the range approximately from minus 3.6 to plus 3.6. So all you are interested in this value, you will find corresponding this value. If this value is X, we call this value as Z or Z score. And you can calculate this Z using the formula X minus mu divided by sigma. Okay? When you apply this formula, you can convert any value from normal distribution into standard normal distribution. And suppose if this value is coming like how much? Minus 1.2. Then you will go to the Z table. In the Z table, you will locate minus 1.2 reading. Corresponding to that reading, the Z table is already going to have some probability like 0.13. So you will say this cumulative area is 0.13. So my problem is solved with without even using calculator or computer, right? I can calculate the probability even if my normal distribution is following this small mean and standard deviation, or maybe millions of mean and standard deviation, irrespective of the scale. Now we try to understand what is this formula, x minus mu divided by sigma. Here we are measuring what? We are measuring this particular data point is how much away from this mean. Okay, we are measuring just this difference. Okay, this difference we are measuring using x minus mu, and then we are dividing it by sigma. Why? Because we want to be unitless. So we are interested in knowing this difference in terms of standard deviation. So we will say, okay, x is maybe 1.2 millimeter distance away from its mean, but how much standard deviation it is away from mean? Because the standard normal distribution is going to follow one standard deviation. So all the readings you have on here, they are standard deviation. If data point is 1 standard deviation away, 2 standard deviation away, 3 standard deviation away, so it talks in terms of standard deviation. That is why it is unitless. And here you are always going to get rid. You are always going to follow the problem of unit. Okay, so that's how using this formula you can convert a normal distribution into standard normal distribution. Once you have a standard normal distribution, you can get all the probability. So that is why standard normal distribution is important. And the standard normal distribution has got many applications, like whenever you are going to work on hypothesis testing, z-test, t-test, okay, other chi-square test, okay, everywhere you are going to follow the exactly same approach. Firstly, you will find the z-score, t-score from the corresponding distribution. Once you have a score, you can calculate the probability for the cumulative probability. So that is what you were asking, why it is not 2 by 6 or 3 by 6. That is what the concept of cumulative probability. So area under the curve represents the cumulative probability. Okay. So now just final note before we wind up the call. So maybe what we started our session today with a very simple thing, mean, right? Central tendency, mean, mode, median, and here we ended till normal distribution, standard normal distribution. Okay. I would like to show you or give you some formulas to calculate mean. Okay. Let us see if we can understand them or not. Okay. So how do we calculate mean? If I have got my random variable x, then for x, the formula is summation of xi divided by n. This formula, yeah, is definitely a valid formula to calculate mean, but many a times you are not given all the value of x, right? And you are given the values present in the form of xi and corresponding probability pi. Okay, because most of the time your values are going to be repetitive. So in that case, you will be given only unique value like 1, 2, 3, 4. And you will be given corresponding probability like 0.1, 0.3, 0.3, 0.3, or whatever. Okay. If I have to calculate mean for this data, what I will do? Huh? Yes. So my formula will become simply what? Like summation of xi dot pi. Should I divide it by n? Yes. No. Why? Because what is this 1 by n? Is uniform probability. Okay. So here this pi is nothing but the replacement of 1 by n. When your data is repeating again and again, we simply assume that it is following uniform probability. And if you have total n number of data points, then for one value, the probability will be 1 by n. So here we are indirectly using that probability only. So this n is nothing but associated with uniform probability. Here we are explicitly making use of probability function. So we don't multiply it. Like it is always going to include that fraction. Okay. So this is going to be the only formula. But this is when your variable is discrete random variable. Can anyone tell me the formula of mean to calculate mean for continuous random variable? Yes. So basically this summation is going to be replaced by integration. X is going to remain X only. Pi will be replaced by some function P of X, and that is what? Probability density function of continuous random variable with respect to X. And now you are supposed to calculate the mean for like any given lower limit to upper limit. So like this was the very simple, and this is for continuous random variable, but all these are what? Formulas to calculate mean. Okay. So here I would like to end up the session over here, and little bit about statistics. And tomorrow we are going to talk about inferential statistics. Okay, little more complex and maybe more important concepts from statistics. Okay, thank you everyone from Bangalore and Hyderabad.
Recording now.